You're just gonna jizz in me and then that's it?
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new model from Kansept Knives called the Integra. And the fun part about this for me is the fact that I may be the only person that's going to be able to do the review in the way that I'm doing it, because I actually have an original full custom Integra to give a comparison against. And I've been waiting for a few weeks for these to arrive. And I've been excited about it because I absolutely love my Integra. It is one of the sleekest and sexiest custom folders that I've had a chance to own. And I've had this for a few months, and I've had a chance to have a nice love affair with it and get past the honeymoon period. And I'm still in love with it, even beyond that initial phase of excitement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to very quickly unbox these, because having never, ever owned a Kansept knife, I was unaware of the really cool packaging that they use. And I got to tell you, it's an interesting experience, especially for knives that are in such a low price category. There are a couple of reasons that I've never really had any particular interest in the Kansept knives, but I have to tell you, after doing this, I'm actually, I'm pretty excited about what this brand has to offer. So, first, when you slide this box open, you're greeted with this cardboard holder. Inside of that is going to be a microfiber cloth. And then you're going to have what I'm assuming are care instructions, warranty information, that sort of thing, all folded up nice and neat inside of there. And perhaps my favorite part of the packaging is this little pouch. This is exceptional packaging. It really is. I was not expecting such nice packaging from such a low price point knife. Now, when I say low price point, I'm obviously comparing it to, you know, a $1,000 custom. So when we're talking, you know, $229, $239 in that price range, for a lot of people, that may still be an expensive price, and I don't want to take away from your experience in the way that you shop and the budget that you've set for yourself. But when you compare it to the full custom, this is actually very, very inexpensive, so I wasn't expecting packaging quite this nice. Now, I'm not going to open them both up right here. I want to save at least one to be a surprise when I get down to the tabletop. Now, I've already opened up both of these, so the only part of the packaging that's missing, well, two things actually, is the little pouch of chiclets and and the plastic bag that the knife itself is in when it's inside of the pouch. Now, I'm already seeing I'm going to have an issue with this bronze version of the knife because my finger keeps coming off of the flipper tab. So what I need to do is clean the knives very quickly before I get into this, just to make sure my finger isn't slipping off due to oil on the flipper tab, because as with most knives that come in from overseas, these are very, very heavily oiled. So it's not uncommon to have it all around the exterior of the knife where your finger's slipping off of flipper tabs and off of lock bars and things like that. So I do want to show you this close up, the unboxing for this one, just so you kind of get the full experience, because honestly, you could go out right now and spend 2-3 times this amount on a knife, whether it be a production knife or a custom knife, and not get an unboxing experience that's quite as cool as this. So bravo to Kansept for doing that, for putting in not only the time and effort and expense in making this packaging, but to sit down and design it out where it's really, really a completely different experience. I mean, I've reviewed and bought and traded and sold thousands and thousands of knives, and this is among the coolest of unboxing experiences. So kudos to you guys. All right, let's get down to the tabletop and see what we think of this knife close up and compared to the full custom. is not a cheap knife. It's an inexpensive knife that's made very, very well. All right, let's get an up-close and personal look at both of these variations. But to begin with, I'd like to start by doing the actual unboxing on camera so you get the full experience of what they're doing here. This is such creative packaging, so cool, so slick. You slide that top off. Inside of here will be that microfiber cloth and the paperwork that I discussed. And then there is that super cool pouch. Really outstanding packaging and something that I would not have expected for anywhere near this price range. And we're going to be talking a lot about the pricing on these knives because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, the only thing that really irks me about these knives is the pricing. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, stay tuned. We are going to talk about that. I'll discuss it in full detail so that you understand what it is that I'm trying to say. Let's get this other one unpouched. This is the standard bronze with M390. Okay, dokie. Now I am going to go back to my standard video format this time around, so I'm going to do the TLDW and get the full specs out there after that, and then my musings and ramblings beyond that. So let's go ahead and dive straight in. What you're looking at here are the two Kansept production Integras versus the full custom JK Knives Integra. And I've only had the custom for about 4 months or so, but I really, really enjoy it. Obviously, was a fan since last year with the Dwarf, and now having this, I just think it's such a beautifully designed, fantastic knife that I still feel for being a full custom is a good value as well. But then you go off into these, and it starts getting ridiculous. Because here's a knife that, for all intents and purposes, will satisfy the same desires that people get satisfied with the full custom without having the pedigree of being a full custom behind it. For somebody that's just buying a knife just to buy a knife and they like the design and it doesn't need to go beyond that for them, then this is going to scratch the itch. Absolutely no way around it. So with that, let's get into the TLDW, which is the too long, didn't watch segment for those that simply do not have the time or patience to actually watch a full review. So we're just going to kind of bullet point this. The pros. It is very faithful to the original custom design. As a matter of fact, if I didn't tell you which of these was the custom and which of them was the production, even handing it to you live in person, you would not know. Now, if you looked at the beautiful satin, hand-rubbed satin finish on the custom, that would be the greatest indicator for you. But as far as the execution, the machining work that's been done, even the way this has been fitted together, it really mimics the custom very, very well. You've also got a really good action. It's extremely smooth. Nice and fast. You will have to learn how to hold this knife, however. And that also goes for the custom because it is pretty much identical. In almost every way that you go to hold this knife, you're applying pressure to the lock bar. And when you do that, unfortunately, you're putting a lot of pressure on the detent, holding the detent into the detent hole of the blade. And I haven't noticed it as much with the entropic version. However, this version here, the stonewash with the bronze, they've been, like right now, almost impossible to flip it open. So you want to make sure you have the proper hand placement on there and you're in good shape. But if you're somewhat used to, using frame lock flippers, then you're pretty well accustomed to that anyway. Another pro for these is the neutral ergos. So it's a fairly slim, fairly straight body. It only tapers a little bit toward the rear, and it just kicks up just a little bit back here so that your pinky is held in place. Really, really good ergonomics. It fits comfortably in the hand. It is slim and a little tall, so there are people out there that aren't going to want to use this for really, really long, hard cutting tasks, because your hand can get fatigued trying to grip something that's so slim, that's also pretty wide. So do keep that in mind. But as far as the way that it fits the hand, really like it, feels really good. Now, the cons, we'll go back to that strong detent. My version here in the Entropic version is a little bit of a lighter detent, so I don't have too many problems with that. So there's a little inconsistency here. This one has a stronger detent, and look, my fingers are not even on the lock bar, and there are times that it will not flip. The worst of it, though, is this is not the right kind of jimping for this flipper tab. You will actually, if your finger repeatedly slips off and you're putting a lot of pressure to overcome that stronger detent, it actually becomes very painful on your finger, because this is just going to dig in and it feels like it's going to the bone. What this should have is undercut jimping, so very, very, very fine jimping done with a wire EDM where it can be undercut, where it doesn't feel sharp when you're touching it, but it will actually grip. It will actually grab your skin, your flesh, if you're pulling up against the undercuts. That's what this needs. Yeah, right. Almost could not open at that time at all. So you're always fighting the pressure that's required to overcome the detent and concentrating on not letting your fingers slip off. So there's so much thought that has to go into flipping it that it's not a pleasurable experience with this one. With this one, it's been pretty good. I really don't have much of a complaint about this one. It is built the exact same way. The only difference is the detent is not quite as strong. The lock bar tension is not quite as heavy. So I haven't really had any issues flipping it. Now, this is also something that you need to get used to with the custom. With the custom, let's take a nice close look here. There is no jimping whatsoever. And it's a little bit slightly different shaped on the flipper tab. What I've gotten used to doing is kind of coming at it with my finger like this. Instead of like this, I'm kind of coming at it from the side. That also puts the knife in a different spot where it allows me to have my fingers a little bit higher up on the frame so that I'm guaranteed to not be applying pressure to the lock bar. Now, it has required a little bit of adjustment for me to get used to it, but not enough for it to be a deal breaker. That's why it's still in my collection. That's why I still enjoy it as much as I do. This is in my constant rotation to be carried all the time. It is truly a knife that I love and I enjoy. So there's nothing I can really complain about that. But I do have to be conscious when I pick this knife up to use it that I'm going to be flipping it this way instead of this way. Now with this, I really haven't seen that. No, that's not a benefit. It doesn't change a damn thing. This one is almost useless to me. I do not enjoy even touching that knife. This one, however, they did a great job with. They got the lock bar tension right. They got the detent right. Now, further cons. The frame can be a bit slick in the hands. They're very flat. They're very smooth. There's no jimping anywhere. And this really isn't the type of knife that you would expect to have jimping anyway, so I'm not going to knock it for that. But you do have to be aware this is one of those knives. It's a little bit slicker in the hand, a little bit smoother in its overall design. Now, as far as the entropic finish goes, I know there are a lot of people that do not like it. They're calling it the basic name of lightning titanium, lightning finished, lightning anodized titanium. I think it's a super cool look. I dig it. And I like the fact that it's random, which is where the entropic name comes from. So no two knives will ever be alike. If you bought 5 of these knives in this finish, they'll all be dramatically different from one another. And depending on what color they went to when they were initially torching the titanium before dropping it in the ferric and then creating this lightning pattern, that's going to dictate the colors that are going to be coming out of it as well. So it looks, to my eye, I am no expert on entropic anodizing, but it looks like they went to a bronze or more of a golden bronze as they were heating it up with the torch. And then when they dropped it into the ferric, you're getting a lot of the blues. You've got some yellows in here as well, but I definitely see some traces underlying of the bronze. So anyway, I like the entropic finishes. The only problem with the entropic finish is the more you handle it, it's not like Timascus, where when you're handling Timascus and your oils get on it, yeah, they will get dull and they'll kind of seem like they're losing color. Then you spray some Windex on there, wipe it down, and it comes right back. With the entropic anodizing, what happens is, because I think it's probably because you've got that underlying base anodized color, and then you have such a tight pattern in here of these other colors, it comes out looking a little muddy, like it's dirty. Like it'll start getting dark and brown, and it's really, really weird how that happens. However, just like with any other type of anodizing, when you hit it with Windex and wipe it down, all of the colors come back to their original vibrancy. So as long as you're taking care of the knife, I think it's going to look fantastic. It's such a wild, wild look. Nothing I can say, honestly, to knock it. I think it's pretty fantastic. But if you ever run into people saying, I hate those lightning anodized finishes, that is most likely their reason for it. And honestly, there are people that just want to be able to handle and play with their knives and not have to clean them very much. Now, the only other negative that I've really got is this Damascus. Now, I'm not saying the Damascus is bad or poorly done, not at all. The reason I'm not a fan of this Damascus is this is more of that generic 9CR based Damascus. It's going to drive down the desirability of Damascus in general. If you're going to continue to see $220 knives with Damascus that looks this good, that looks like this, and another knife I'm going to be reviewing soon, which is even less. I think it's like $129, which has what looks like Damasteel, but it's not. It's a 9CR Damascus. When companies are able to offer you Damascus at such cheap prices, there will be a proliferation of them on the market. And at some point, it's going to be looked upon as Damascus in general as,
well, you know, it kind of looks like that super cheap knife that I saw on the internet. There's nothing special about that.
Listen, pattern welded steel, it is special. It is an art form, forging it, drawing it out, working with it, etching it, everything else. It is an art form and it should be respected. But when you're able to do that so cheaply, I think it's going to kind of put this black mark on Damascus in general in people's minds. So that bothers me to a great degree. And it's not a concept thing. It's not an Integra thing. I'm starting to see this now. We are all starting to see this now across the industry with a lot of these lower price brands that are offering what they're calling Damascus. And for everything that I see, they are actual Damascus. And we're not going to get into the whole
what's real Damascus and what's roots.
I'm talking about the modern day Damascus that we are all accustomed to, pattern welded steel. It appears to be the same, as anybody else's. They're just using a more readily available, inexpensive combination of steels for the recipe, and that allows them to put them in a knife that, you're paying $239. I'm sorry, my mistake. $239 is the bronze. $220. What's even crazier about it is, and this really bothers me about this knife. Here is a bead blasted, stone-washed, and anodized bronze titanium frame with a stone-washed blade. Here is a fully polished titanium frame. A lot more time, effort, and consumables used to do that. Then they've taken the time to do this more specialized anodizing and a Damascus blade. And that's less expensive than this. That really irks me in a way that I don't know that I can properly convey to you. Maybe I sound crazy. But it bothers me when a brand can do this because it's not good. It's not good for the industry because now everybody else has to try to make a competitive product at a newly competitive price. This is a knife that, let's say Riot made this. This would be minimum $450 and probably a little bit more. If it were a custom knife factory, this would be closer to $1,000. But now you've got a brand that says, okay, we're going to give everybody the middle finger, the entire industry. We're going to put this out for $220, polished, entropic finish, beautifully anodized. Oh, and then we're going to add Damascus to it. And we're going to do it for 220 bones. Well, now, people that are simply only looking at specs, materials, and prices are going to look at them on paper and look at anything to compare it to and go, they're overcharging for X brand, X model, because I can buy this knife in this wild finish with Damascus for $220. How dare this other brand bring out this other knife for 2 or 3 times that price? It's hard to argue that because you can't give it the common argument of, well, that's comparing a Bentley to a Volkswagen. You can't do that because there's nothing about this knife that screams cheap. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't look cheap. There's nothing about it that you could say, well, it's very clear why this one's so much cheaper than the one that's $400 or $500, because there isn't that huge of a difference. You're not bridging a large gap there with this price. And that's troublesome. It's worrisome. Because what is it going to force everybody to do as an industry? Because at some point, customers are just going to get spoiled with stuff like this, and we're all going to go, I know what I paid for this, and I'm so in love with it, and it's so beautiful, and it's so exotic, and it's so different, and it's made so well. I demand that all other knives that I'm looking at be priced accordingly, competitively to something like this. Meanwhile, that's just damn near impossible. So I think that they're kind of twisting the knife on the rest of the industry. I'll give you an example. It was ball busting For me to come out with my Kaladin model, an S90V, with these higher end materials for the scales and whatnot, and put this out at $285. I honestly believed when I was in development on this that this was going to be around $400, because I'm asking for harder things to do. I'm asking for a curved bolster. I'm having everything contoured. I'm even having the clip contoured. All of these things, hand rubbed satin, premium S90V steel, and I expected it to be retailing at around $400. Then when I got my costs on it, I went, oh my God, I'm able to bring this thing out at $285. And I truly was celebrating with myself. What a fantastic, amazing deal that was. And I like to think that the customers, the hundreds of customers that have bought into my Kaladin, have felt the same way. But then I pick this up and I go, wow, this is really well made. It's beautiful. It's flashy. It's got a great finish. And it's got friggin' Damascus, man. And this is $60 less. I don't know how they're doing it. And I don't know what it's going to mean going forward for other production houses that are going to be releasing knives in this same vein. I don't know if it's good or bad for the industry. I honestly can't tell you. What I'm so surprised about is the fact that this is so close to the in-hand feel of the custom. And I guess if I were to go back in time and add another con to the list, I absolutely do not like this bizarre sharpening choil. This weird flat area. I don't understand the shape of it. I don't like how it looks visually. I'm sure it works just fine, because your plunge is all the way back here, and the plunge terminates right there. So you've got plenty of room to easily resharpen this blade and not create the notch or the smiley. But I don't think it looks good. Now, if you look at the way Jarek does it himself on his customs, it makes for a better flowing overall design. It doesn't look the same. It kind of does if you're not looking at them side by side. I think they tried to mimic what he was doing here, but this is still a bit more rounded. This weird, long, flat spot, I don't get. But it's serving the same purpose. It's still allowing you to get in there and sharpen it with your consumer-grade sharpening kit and hopefully not bugger up your blade too much. So it's doing what it needs to do. Now, let's get into the specs portion. We're out of the TLDW. Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. I'll put this there and put this there. And that should give me some room on the screen to put the specs up on the screen. Overall length of 8.5 inches. Blade length 3.62 inches with a blade stock thickness of 110 thousandths. You could choose either the Damascus or the M390 stonewashed. And again, the pricing for the bronze and stonewash on Blade HQ, that's who I'm using for the pricing comparisons, $239, or if you want the Entropic with the Damascus, it's $220. Are there other dealers that have them and at different pricing? I'm fairly certain that there are. But that's the way it breaks down with Blade HQ. Wonderful similarities. Obviously, the pivots are different from the production to the custom. This is a custom-made pivot that is captured from the back side. As you see, it fits into the cutout area of the frame. The production knives do not have that. It's just generic hardware. Also, this is recessed nicely. They have he has countersunk the pivot nicely, so it feels mostly flat along the plane of the titanium. This is actually raised. So you actually feel the pivot, you see the pivot and feel the pivot. Hardware is sunken in very nicely, just like the custom. Back spacer the fitment is every bit as good as the custom. Nice and flat, everything is nice and even on there. Pocket clips. Let's see if we can pull the camera back just a little bit. That's getting ridiculous. Pocket clips are very, very similar, and they both work equally as well. I've carried this for a while, have had no problem getting it in and out of the pocket. I have used these clips in and out of the pocket, and they've worked very, very well. Overall, they're extraordinarily similar. Obviously, you're not getting the same level of refinement as you do in the custom. And that's where the casual buyer and the hardcore collector are going to see things differently. The casual buyer is going to go, man, that looks so much like this, and it's so close. Why would anybody want to buy the custom for that kind of money? But it's when you're the collector that you're looking at the degrees of refinement that are available in the higher end knife, in that custom knife. And yeah, if you showed me both of these and I understood that one was production, one was custom, this was $200, this was right around $1,000, I would still choose the custom because it's that extra little bit of refinement. Having that nicer blade finish, having the handwork that was done in it, makes it worth it for me. There's a story behind it. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I promise I will make this very, very brief. I want to thank those of you that have joined and become channel members. You are helping to support the channel and helping to continue the growth. And if you've been considering supporting the channel in any way, shape, or form, because I do not have channel sponsors, I don't shill anybody's products, I don't get paid for anything, I don't do affiliate links, so everything is completely self-funded. If you'd like to help out and watch the channel grow and get more great content coming your way, please do consider becoming a member. There's a provenance to this knife that this knife will never have. And to be perfectly honest with you, every time you buy a custom knife, even if your intention is to never ever sell the knives, you always want something, if you're investing this kind of money, you're going to want something that's not going to depreciate tremendously. You want something hopefully that will either hold its value or appreciate. And in the customs, you are much more likely to have a value that appreciates over time, whereas with a production, unless it's something crazy special and rare or there's a particular twist to it, they generally don't appreciate in value. So those are all things to keep in mind as you're looking across the custom to the production versions. I have to say congratulations to Jarek, because this is a wonderful interpretation of his design. I'm glad for him that they were able to push the pricing so low, because that means a lot of people are going to be able to afford to buy it. I'm sure the sales are going to be fantastic. I do worry, however, when a brand like this thumbs their nose at the entire industry and says, screw it, we're going to put that out for $220 to $239. We don't care what anybody else is pricing their knives at. And it may, I don't know what it's going to do. In the long run, I don't know if it means nothing, or if it's going to create some sort of healthy competition, or it's going to put maybe some brands out of business trying to compete with that, trying to cut their costs to a degree where they're able to still provide quality. Because that's the thing, man. This is not a cheap knife. It's an inexpensive knife that's made very, very well, that would easily feel like something tremendously more expensive when you're holding it, when you're flipping it, when you're really looking at it closely. It's nutty. It really is pretty damn crazy. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the knife as a whole. Congratulations to everyone who has picked one up. Everybody that's about to, when you get yours, come back to the comments section and please let me know what you think, how it felt for you. I'm worried about the inconsistency from knife to knife with this detent, with the flipping action. I can tell you right now, when I turn this camera off, that knife will never be touched again. I love how it looks, and I like that it's a more plain Jane version that I'd be a lot less afraid to use. And I don't have to use Windex every other time I pick it up. But this one actually operates flawlessly, and I enjoy flipping it. I enjoy playing with it, much like I do with the custom. So I'd like to know if there's a consistency that I'm not seeing, because I only have, 2 examples here. One operates so damn well, and one is a friggin' torture machine. So that's up to you. Anyway, overall, I'm very positive about this knife. I feel very, very good about it. I think it's fantastic. It looks great. It feels great. And with this one, the action is fantastic. And it's so close to being the custom that it blurs the lines tremendously. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I'll see you guys on the next video.